Okay, I will go first on the questions. Can you please go to your landscape?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you please explain the usage of your ETL with your network drive and CAT system and X-Files Pro, please?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can certainly try. So the CAD system is already natively saving all of the data to the network drive, and the X-Files Pro can connect to the network drive and synchronize files uploaded to Salesforce to the network drive. X-Files Pro cannot check for the changes on the network drive, so it cannot, by default, as a product is created, to load the new files from the network drive to Salesforce. So that's why I'm having this ETL job that will be running once every hour that will load any newly or updated files from the network drive. It will load their name, which will be from the folder structure that will represent the folder structure as X-Files Pro is using it. So the unique identifiers of Salesforce IDs will be the names of the folders with any other attributes like name of the account, for example. And then it will take the path to the file from the network drive and these identifiers where I will strip the Salesforce ID of the account or of the order, whichever I need to link the data to. And then the ETL would process the data into the bulk API call to Salesforce to upload these data as the records into the custom object that X-Files Pro is using to actually link external files to the Salesforce objects.
Okay, and can you find a way to do that using the ESB?
I'm not aware of any logic that network drive would be able to notify ESB, and as I'm running it as a batch job, I would rather use ETL.
You don't see any need to have this data on a real-time basis?
I'm not seeing that requirement, but if that would be the case, what my solution would be is that I would have a button on any necessary object that would trigger request response integration through the ESB, and it would load the necessary data. The other reason, well, it would need to go through the ETL because, for example, if we would be using MuleSoft as the ESB, it cannot access the network drive unless you would use the third-party connectors. The standard MuleSoft file connector can access local drives, but it cannot access the network drive. So that's why I'm proposing to be using ETL and the batch job. If I need to have a real-time experience, I'm pretty sure we can go down from 1 hour to a couple minutes, and it will be near real-time, which I'm positive should be good enough in what our business is trying to do.
Okay, thank you.
Kuldeep, you're next.
Yeah. Can you please elaborate user agent flow?
Excuse me, which one?
User agent flow.
User agent flow. Do I understand you? Because I'm not sure.
User agent flow that you are using here.
For the Salesforce one app.
Yes, can you explain it?
From what perspective do you mean?
So when users start using the Salesforce app, how it is going to work in the backend, how it is going to authenticate, authorize.
Oh, right. Okay, now I understand. So, so the Salesforce one will send a request to Salesforce authorization endpoint to access the inner resources, right? Like a account page, for example. And the Salesforce would know that the Salesforce one is not yet authenticated or authorized, so it will trigger the SAML-based SP initiated flow because I'm going to be using the I'm going to be using the specific URL in my SF1 settings to be able to support the SSO from the app. So the user agent will start from the Salesforce app to the Salesforce. Then the SAML would kick in. I would be redirected to the Okta as my IDP. I would receive the necessary SAML assertion with all of the necessary information. And if I pass these checks, then the Salesforce would grant me the access token, which then I would return back to the Salesforce one and finish the user agent flow.
Okay. Next.
Sure. So, Slava, could you take me to requirement number 10, how you have described requirement number 10 in the first venue onboarding, I believe. Maybe I got this mixed up then. I wrote down just number 10. You're utilizing price book and price book entries. You're utilizing the opportunities in order to drive that. I mean, yeah, okay, number 9, sorry, right there. Can you walk me through this? How explain the user experience to me as they're filling this opportunity?
Yes. So I have 2 opportunity types. One is for venue, so that's when I'm onboarding a venue, and I have one for sales. It's when I'm selling the banners for the specific customer. So assuming that there is a new venue being onboarded, I will have an opportunity of record type venue, and I will have a specific price book assigned to it with all of the banner sizes I have within my company. I don't know, it can be 100, 200, 300. It really doesn't matter, but let's assume there is 300 products that are generic products that I can work with. Then as I'm working on onboarding my venue, I will select up to 50 of these generic products that will be part of my venue. And I will store them in the opportunity line items, and I will assign them the price for which I will be selling each of them to my final customers. As I finish onboarding of my new venue in that opportunity, and I set the opportunity to closed one, then I will have a record trigger flow that will create in the system mode. It will create a new price book that will be linked to the venue, to the account. I will create the price book entries that will be linking the newly created price book to the products that have been added from the generic list on the opportunity, and assign them the default price for that venue in the price book entry. And then how it's going to be used, then I will have the opportunity of the type sales. And because I already know what the venue is, as it's a required field on the opportunity, then in the before insert record trigger flow, I will select the correct price book that is assigned to that venue through that account to PB link, and I assign it as an opportunity price book. And thus, when you would go to the standard add products page on the opportunity, only the products that you can actually use for that venue will be visible for you.
So this whole the opportunity that you're talking about in this context is simply to set the price book entries, the price books of each of the venues that you're onboarding. Did I understand you correctly? That you're utilizing the venue onboarding opportunity to actually determine the price books that you would create finally against that venue?
That's right, yes.
Does it need to be that elaborate? What happens if there is a disagreement on the price book? What is the process?
What do you mean disagreement on the price?
Negotiation of price, right? I mean, it's a contract. I'm entering into a contract with a new venue that I'm onboarding. So there is going to be a back and forth. The venue might. That's what I'm given to understand, right? You are not imposing a price book onto the new venue. That's why you're going through this whole opportunity with the venue onboarding.
I'm not sure I understand your question, but
no, I'm not sure I understand whether we need to use opportunity to decide on a price book for a venue.
So my understanding is that my business is, hey, I can do banners for you at this venue, I can do these banners at these locations for this price. So that's my service. And either the venue operators would say, hey, I got this great banner company, and they will promote me to their customers that are renting their places, but I'm not going to be in the contract with the venue, right? I'm not paying them extra. At least I haven't seen that. So my business is to take care of my customers that are renting the venue and they are buying banners from me. They can be buying banners from anyone. So this is my understanding.
Do you see a contract with the venue?
I'm not. If anything, I can see the contract with my customer after the order is signed, but I haven't seen any requirements to have a contract with the venue.
Okay. Then if you don't have a contract with a venue, why do you need to negotiate with them on a price?
I'm not negotiating with them on the price. I'm building my price for each of the banner that would be part of that venue during my work with the technicians and venue operators. I'll say, hey, this is a big banner, it will be $100. This is a smaller one, it's 50 banners. I'm saying my price for which I will be selling to my actual customers.
Okay, then that's you are unilateral in how you are doing it. It's a price book. You have decided on the prices for each of the banner placeholders, and you give it to the venue. Either they take it or they leave it. Correct?
As I said, I'm not selling this to the venue. I will use this price book after the venue is onboarded. I will use this price book as a base to discuss the final pricing with my customer. So if my customer, my final customer,
price book already in place. Do you have the price book already in place?
I do, because I have my price book created once the venue is being onboarded. So until the venue is not onboarded, it cannot be selected as the place for the sales opportunity.
Okay. That was not clear to me, that the price book was already in place as you were onboarding the venue. I thought this whole opportunity was to onboard the venue, right? So that was.
I think that you are mixing two opportunities. So I'm saying that whenever the sales opportunity is being created, then the price book for that venue is already existing always.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Yeah, sorry. If you go back, please, on your system landscape, you are using three mobile apps. Among them, you are using two hybrid mobile apps, one for the customers and one for the venue operators. Can you explain to me, please, the need behind using the hybrid apps and the need behind having an offline access for the customers?
Right. So from my understanding, there was the requirement that says that as they are cooperating on the banner, I think it's the installation. Yeah. So they would like to be able to download and cache the images and blueprints onto the device. And it says that the venue operators and customers. So that's why I have two, one for customers and one for venue operators. The reason I'm having two and why it's hybrid is that I don't assume that they will be doing the same operations in their applications. So that's why I have two of them. And the benefit of having them as hybrid is that I can use the HTML5 components in both of them, right? So I will have one component that is defined on the server, and then I can use it both in the customer and the venue operator hybrid app at the point where they need to work at the same level or with the same data. I will need to only change the specifics that would be unique to the customer or to the venue operators. I'm assuming that venue operator can do much more items from the app compared to the customer.
Okay. Okay. And I have another question, this time on the onboarding, venue onboarding, the second requirement. Okay. Here you are giving the venue operators customer community plus licenses, and you are exposing an LWC to allow them to create leads to work on. How are you going to give them access to create leads via the LWC component?
Right. So I'm assuming that so they are not my internal customers. They're on CC Plus. They have no access to the leads. But in my view, it's the same as I'm going to my website and using for assembly to create a lead through the API. So I would eventually use a user that actually has access to create the leads, right? And because they are only submitting the leads, even from the inside the application, I'm going to use the LWC that will be running on the Apex controller that will be set without sharing. So it would go over the limitations, and it will allow them to create a lead exactly the same way as they would be creating them through the website. So I had the option to link them to the website and create a lead out there, but I've considered that, but I went for the higher user experience or better user experience to do that directly from the Experience Cloud.
Are you allowed to do that in the Salesforce terms and agreement? Are you allowed to bypass the limitations of the Salesforce licensing?
As I said, this is exactly the same thing as creating lead through the web to lead, right? So I don't need to, in the end, if I cannot, if in the end, if this would be breaching the contractual obligations, then I don't need to have the controller to directly create the lead. I can have that LWC Apex controller to call the same API that the web to lead would be calling or the form assembly is utilizing. So that would be my workaround if Salesforce wouldn't like it, but I'm pretty sure that it shouldn't breach any combination. It's just the creation of the leads. It will not allow them to do any other work. It will not allow them to see any leads that they have submitted. So it's just the web to lead, but within the internal
but
community.
The fact that you are allowing them to do that from the community, by doing that, bypassing the limitations on the licenses, this would potentially cause problem. Why don't you just let them or redirect them to the form assembly to create the leads?
Well, because I would need to solve the access there. They might be on the mobile app, then I would need to open a browser from the mobile app, which is problematic. So, and it would be less comfortable to the user. So I have decided with that, and I'm pretty sure that this will not be an issue and breach of the obligations.
Okay, thank you.
But very good point. As a fallback, if that would be issue, and I would definitely consult that with Salesforce, I can very easily redirect that actual saving to any endpoint that Salesforce would be happy with. I don't need to create them with the DML operation directly from that controller.
Okay, thank you.
Can you please show the LDV calculation? Now, you mentioned 3 years. So how did you consider these 3 years? Yeah. So order line items, you are considering 20 million and opportunity 20 million, ratio of 1 million. Okay. How about the events? How many events going to be generated?
So I'm representing my events as orders. So I'm assuming that if I'm working with my customer, it will be on the event. So I didn't find a reason to have a separate object that would take 1 million of my rows. So I'm working with the order in that regard.
So don't you think that one event can have multiple orders?
Well, given the fact that, well, That's a good question. I didn't consider it because of they mentioned that they would be preparing it for a week, and for the customer, there is also only one venue specification. So I'm assuming that if someone would rent the venue, it will be all for them. So I didn't assume that use case.
Okay, what if there can be more than more than one order for an event? So what will be your solution?
Oh, I will have two orders. I haven't seen any requirement that I need to link them to an event. So I will have an order for one customer and the order for the other customer. The only thing I would need to consider at that point is that they cannot use the same banners as the others would be using. So I would need to link those two orders together as they are going to be working on the same event, and then somehow limit or check that the same banners are not used twice.
So how you're going to link them?
Okay, so if I really need to do that, then let's assume it can be multiple orders. So I would have one order as a leading order, and then I would have a lookup from order to order that would be called as a secondary or additional event order, and it would link it to the main order.
Okay, and how if I need to report based on the event, that how many products or events, orders are uh, executed for a particular event, how I am going to do that?
So as these requirements are not there, I didn't consider them. So I'm not thinking this entirely through to the all of the possibilities. But then if you would be insisting on that, then what I can do, so I have multiple orders per event. I guess that if this is really necessary and I need to have even the reporting, then I would change my previous solution and I would create the custom object event, and I would be linking orders against that object to be able to report on the data that you have requested.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Raman?
could we go to the orders section, please?
Mhm.
The very first one, not clear to me what your recommendation on SAP as being the source of truth for accounts and ERP data globally is. Are we retaining that?
We are definitely retaining that for the ERP data. So like many necessary invoices or whichever accounting items would be done there, that's going to stay in the SAP. Also the connections to the print locations, it will be there. Regarding the accounts, which are our customers, that will move to the Salesforce. So as the new customers will be onboarded through Salesforce, then the Salesforce will be leading system for them. If there would be any specific accounting fields, excuse me, that I need to have mastered in SAP, then I would make sure that the field level security on them in Salesforce is set in a way that normal users cannot change those values. And if they should be able to at least propose a change to them, like if there would be a tax number, right? Then I guess that the sales guy would be the first one to know that it has been changed. So I would then introduce a process of a change request. So we will create a change request that would specify what data needs to be changed, and then person that would be in charge of those and responsible for them would approve or deny. If they would be approved, they would be able to update that field, and then it would be integrated to SAP.
Okay. Thank you. Let's go to number 7 in venue onboarding, I believe. It is technician who has the available capacity. I think I got the section correct. Otherwise, let's just search on how do you decide which technician has the required capacity? If I didn't get this section right, it's probably, can you just do a search on available capacity, please? Sorry about that. Yeah, right there.
Right. So,
Is that the one?
yeah, I think so. Menu default. So first of all, I need to select only the technicians from the print location, right? So during the onboarding, I would set my venue that would be part of the print location. I would select that from the map, right? So that's the first step. And then I need to select the technician that will be working with me. I have my account team members, which is defining all of the technicians that are belonging to any of the print locations. So when I need to select the technician for my onboarding, I would go from the print location account to its account teams to load all of the available technicians. Then I run another query to understand how many onboarding opportunities they are working on and select the one with the least amount of those.
Did you think of any options while you were designing this to this requirement? Any other options available out of the box from Salesforce?
The other option would be most likely to use an omni-channel on the opportunity. So I think I would be able, but then the technician would need to be the owner of the opportunity, right? Which I didn't want to do, and I'm having ESR as the owner. So that's why I eventually choose a custom part to deliver that.
Yeah. Yeah, just another question while I am on air. How are you handling the deposits? Not clear to me. There is a 20% upfront payment that is paid, that is charged. You have charged into right there, I believe. And then how are you calculating? That means I now owe you 80% of the total fee. So just walk me through that logic from a standpoint of the user experience. I first get an invoice from you for 20%. How does that work?
Yes, you got the link to pay the 30% deposit. I'm not sending you an invoice at that point unless you would really require it. But then the invoicing is part of the SAP processes. So I'll send you the link. You pay the 20%. Then we start working on all of the renders and preparing all of the visualization of your banners. So once that is done, we set the order as ready. And at that point, I will check if the payment has been received. And if so, I send the order to the SAP for the processing. So during this send out to SAP, I will also include the information that the deposit has been paid. And at that point, but SAP will be able to generate the final invoice for the rest of the payment and distribute it as necessary.
So is the 20% captured as any particular record in Salesforce?
So I got the amount on the order, right? And then I will have a custom field called deposit amount, where I would calculate 20% of the amount.
I see. Any particular reason you're not using any line items of either order or opportunity to do this?
Well, I'm using the opportunity line items, right? That represents my banners that I'm going to sell. But I don't see the reason why I would need to calculate the 20% out of the opportunity line items and get my logic more complex if I just need one number to send to the customer.
Okay. Thank you. Sarah?
Yep. On the same section, orders request requirement number 5. How are you going to handle the credit card data in Salesforce or in Chargenet?
Right. So there is a custom object from charging the payment method. It will be the credit card information will be stored there. The payment method will be linked to the account, and we will store only absolutely necessary information so that we can be compliant with the law. So we will be storing the mask number of the credit card with only 4 last digits to be visible. We are going to store the expiration date and the name on the card. Then
how are you going to make the four digits only the four digits visible?
I'm not. The charge engine will not send me anything else. So it will already send me the mask value, and I will not have the actual number in Salesforce anywhere. So it's not like it would be a mask field, but the charge engine would only send me the mask number. It will also include a token that will uniquely identify the customer ID that it has assigned to that credit card with a combination of the merchant ID, which is the ID of my company registering with the charge end, and that token will be stored there as well to uniquely identify this payment method.
Okay. And on the same section, requirement number 12, please. You have mentioned that you are going to use sharing rules to share one sharing rule per location. Have you taken into consideration the expansion? They need to expand to 5 more countries, 50 locations per country. How are you going to manage those?
Right. So I currently have 4 countries and 50 local teams. So and 2 of those countries are USA and Canada, which are like the biggest countries in the world in terms of business. So I'm not assuming that each other country would be 50 new local teams. So I would assume way lower than that. So by default, we are using 50 out of 250. And then if there would be a need, we can go to Salesforce and ask for 200 more. So I believe that in the foreseeable future, we should be able to live with this solution quite easily.
Do you have any other way to manage those sharing other than using sharing rules?
If I would need to do that and not use the sharing rules, let me think about it for a second. Country. So there can be multiple teams in the country, and I have no idea from the requirements how those would be then distributed in between the teams. But let's say that it would be on the level of the postal codes. So I might be able to use enterprise territories, but I wouldn't suggest it immediately, as there are limitations on how many rules I can have. So I would need to probably use the zip codes ranges to fit into all of the rules that there are. So I would be careful with that. But that would be an option I would definitely consider if I would be running out of the owner-based sharing rules.
Okay, thank you.
Can you explain how you are going to replay the platform event after 3 days?
Right. So the scenario is mentioning 72 hours as maximum. So if that would be correct assumption, I don't need to do anything, as I will always have 3 days. But to be safe, and we know all how SAP are working, so the downtowns can be longer. So how I'm going to do that is that I'm going to create a queue in the ESB, right? So any message that is not processed because of the downtime. So how it works is that I got the event. My subscriber logic is taking that event and it's trying to send it to SAP, but it cannot. It's failing on 404 or 500 error. So that means for me that the server is down. What I do at that point, I take that event with all of the information and put it aside to the queue. Then another one comes in, I try it again, it doesn't work. And I do that as long as I receive 200 from the SAP. When I do, I still keep processing the newly coming events. And then whenever I have a free allocation in my memory or in my CPU time, I will be taking the events from the queue. I can, if the order of the processing would matter, which I'm not assuming at this point, then I would be adding the newly coming ones to the queue, and then coming from the queue, the first ones, standard FIFO, first in, first out. And then once the queue would be empty, I would be starting processing them again in real time.
So how you are going to get the event details, what has been processed or not processed from Salesforce end, or where are you are going to write this code?
It's going to be in ESB. It's a function of the ESB, and one of the reasons I'm proposing ESB technology to be used on the project.
Okay.
Slava, let's go to printing. Kuldeep, I'm assuming you're done with it.
Sure.
Sorry. In the printing, number 9, issue history. Oh,
there's only 8 in the printing. So what is the
issue history? About? The cases against banner size, fasteners, materials. Yeah, right there. Issue history. Okay. So this is a case I understand. I understand you are doing a migration. I understand the solution you are saying here, but I'm trying to understand going forward, where are such cases stored in Salesforce? The case is against what record?
So I'm not going to migrate these to the Salesforce at all. So I will only have in Salesforce cases that would be created once we go live. And my go-to solution is to be able to properly analyze 3 million records. I would not be able to do that in Salesforce anyway. So my proposition is to use CRM analytics with the data warehouse as the source of these migrated data, and also once we would get there, also of the archived cases, if there would be any eventually, because I didn't assume much. I assume like 10% of cases out of my 1 million, so it's 100K, and it's not even LDV. So I would be taking the cases out of the Salesforce, cases out of the data warehouse to the CRM analytics, combine that into a data set, and then combining it with other data sets as necessary from other sources or other objects in Salesforce to allow them to actually do the necessary analysis.
So are we reliant on MS Dynamics going forward, even after implementing Salesforce, for these kind of cases on a go-forward basis?
Can you please repeat your question? I didn't fully hear you.
So let's, what this requirement is telling me is that today the business actually has issues that they document against material, against fasteners, against banner size, right? So where are those stored? Or let me make up a requirement for you right now.
So if
I have a problem with a fastener, okay, the banners have been installed, but I then go to supervise and I find that a fastener on a banner is loose. It needs to be
now
fixed.
I understand. Right. So the process. Okay. So the process I envision is that I will have my data sets in CRM Analytics. I will have the data sets prepared and some of the lenses as well. I'm not assuming that my technicians would be able to do that. But then they will be able to work with those lenses and data sets in the dashboards, build their own dashboards if they would be good enough to understand where the issues are coming from. So as you said, the fastener, and then they would see, hey, there is a lot of issues with the fasteners in these 3 venues, right? So they would think to themselves, hey, we probably need to do something about it. So if those venues are still active, because there are 3 million records from the history, so if the venues are still active, they would go to Salesforce, right? Open the opportunity of the venue type that is linked to the venue and update whatever they need to update there on the banners and the products that they are using for those banners. Does it make sense?
I was also trying to understand the origin of that case. Going forward, the cases came from MS Dynamics. I get that. And you will be looking at the data warehouse and CRMA for the trends. I understand that. But going forward, where am I going to input such a case is my question.
So the cases are being created usually during the work orders, during the preparation of the event. Then I can assume that the case is going to be opened by the final customer, that they would occur during the event, right? So I would expose the case creation form in the customer experience. So they would be able to put in exactly what's wrong. They would put in the specific categorization. So as we have the different categories, we will merge them and make them happen nicely together when migrating data. So we will have a nice set of possible categorizations. We can use maybe a dependent pick list to make it even easier. And then we would have them in a case, right? In the case object in Salesforce. Then we will trigger that, we will work with that. And then, as I said, we will use the case object in Salesforce as the source of the another data set for our issue analysis, together with all of the other ones that are coming from the data warehouse. Does it answer your question?
Sure.
Cool. I'm glad.
It's an answer to my question. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm glad. So any other question? Like the time is gone, but I'm happy to answer more questions if you have any, but we can as well end.
No, let's try to like keep it to the time limits, right? Like so that
okay, then let me
so we can stop the recording.